to Cross My Heart Ministry. Laura McFarland, your host here. If you're a regular subscriber or regular visitor to our channel, welcome back. If you're new, we're happy to welcome you in today. So regular viewers and subscribers know that on every Friday, we publish a devotional video that focuses on the Word of God. But also, every once in a while, I get in the kitchen when I introduce our do it list for the month, or on a Monday, as it is today, I'll do a recipe and sort of demonstrate how to make that. So we're sort of a combination of Mary and Martha. Speaking of that, we have 2 free monthly downloads that are really honoring both of those 2 women. And I think they've been the last 2 videos that we've published. So if you go to our channel, you're there now, and click on playlist or click on recent videos, we published for February our Write the Word bookmark, and that bookmark for the month of February this month features verses that include the word heart, one for each day of the month. You can click on that video, and I've unpacked and explained all about how the bookmark works, and also unpacked a couple of the verses that are on that bookmark. The second free download is called the Do It List, and it's in honor of Martha. So the verses, the Write the Word bookmark honors Mary, the sister who sat at the feet of Jesus. The Do It List honors Martha, who was busy in the kitchen and managing home and hearth and all of those things. And that's the purpose of the Do It List. So 2 recent videos will give you access to both of those. But today it's Martha Monday. Today we have a new recipe for you. The link to it is in the notes below. And if you have been around following us for a while, you're going to hear that recipe and think, that sounds a little familiar. What's familiar about that? Well, I've sort of tweaked an oldie but a goodie. So the oatmeal peanut butter chocolate chip bars this month, in honor of it being the month of Valentine's Day, Happy Heart Day, is being reworked and tweaked a little bit, and I'm calling it oatmeal peanut butter M&M bars. M&M bars. And so the key ingredient being the M&Ms. Now, I also want to give you a little heads up about one of Laura's quirks. Sometimes it seems like I was a child born in the Depression, because I'm constantly looking for little ways to use it up, wear it out, make do without, that kind of thing that is a carryover from my grandmother. I like to not waste things. I like to figure out a way to reuse things. Just a little odd thing about me. I've tried to be a good steward of the resources the Lord has given to me. So in December, I bought a big old package of M&Ms that were red and green for Christmas, and I put those out in little bowls on the dessert table. I took them to Bible study and to my leaders meeting, and I just used those M&Ms all over the place in different places. They're festive, they're fun, they're chocolate, they're delicious. But after Christmas, there were M&Ms left. So what do you do with red and green M&Ms when it's moving into the new year? Well, I divided mine up. I sat there, and I separated the red ones from the green ones. And so the green ones are here in a container in my freezer. I've kept the red ones in my freezer. And so these are the inspiration, these red M&Ms, for the recipe that I'm reworking. I'm replacing the chocolate chips with M&Ms. And guess what? Next month, what happens in March? It's St. Patrick's Day, so I can do the same thing and make another batch of these for St. Patrick's Day. So there's my little tip for you. And when we get to the place that we're going to drop the M&Ms in, I'm going to give you another little tip on baking with M&Ms. But you have to hang around to hear it until I finish the recipe. So here we go. I want to go ahead and preheat my oven to 350. Make sure my baking stones are in the bottom, so I'm going to put it in the top. By the time we get going, that should be reheated. Now, I've got all the ingredients out here ready to go, and I'm going to use my mixer. You could do this by hand, but I just love using my KitchenAid mixer and just dropping everything in there, and it mixes up so quickly. Went down to get on the treadmill in my basement today, and I put the butter out, and it wasn't quite softened as much. So I stuck it just briefly in the microwave on soften, and ran over to get out my spoons and my spatulas, and it got just a little bit too soft. But I think it's still holding together, didn't completely lose its shape, but as I open it up, I've got some liquid coming out. So I'm going to hope I don't make a big old mess here. And I do have a spatula, so I'm going to rake this off. I really should have just put it in. When you're softening it at home, I recommend putting it into a bowl, but I wanted it all intact with the label butter on it for the video. So there's me probably trying to stick to my plan so much that it ends up making a mess. And here again, raking it all off, again, trying to not waste anything, getting all the butter off of the container. So there we have that. So I'm going to move this over out of the way and out of sight. So I've got the butter in there. The next thing is 1/3 cup of creamy peanut butter. So when I was grabbing my peanut butter out, I grabbed both containers. What I want to tell you is this. This girl loves her Jif peanut butter. Even when I'm trying to be healthy and watch what I eat, I just find I need a little bit of peanut butter every day and a little bit of chocolate. But I'm partial to Jif, always been partial to Jif. But it's a little bit more expensive than the Aldi store brand. So I put this out so as not to have you think this is the kind of peanut butter that I eat straight up, but this is the kind of peanut butter that I bake with. So I've got a 1/3 cup container here. Actually, I'm going to need that spatula back. I rinsed it out with a little bit of water, and sometimes I find that if I do that, it's just a little bit easier to get the peanut butter out of the container after the fact. But I think I can rake the edge and pretty much get this to be just about right. But let me get my spatula that I set aside that already has butter on it, and I'll just use it to rake off the excess peanut butter and put it there on the edge. And there we go. Okay, I'm going to drop the peanut butter in here. We're going to get the peanut butter and the regular butter all mixed together. Now, I know some of you probably cook or bake with margarine, but I'm just so partial to butter. So when it was on sale over the holidays, if we can call it a sale, if you're like me, you're just a little bit shocked. I sometimes just stand there with my chin on my chest and my mouth wide open, looking at the prices of things like eggs and butter and just basic staples these days. But nevertheless, it was on sale for what is unfortunately a good price for us right now. And so I don't know if you know that butter freezes really well. So I usually, when it's on sale, will load up by 5 to 10 packages of butter, stick it in there because I tend to do a lot of baking and I like to have it on hand, first of all, so I don't have to go back to the store. And I like just knowing that I've saved a little bit of money, even if I've saved it in advance and I've got it sort of stockpiled in my freezer. My butter and my peanut butter are all mixed together. I'm going to go ahead and add in 1/2 cup of sugar. Now, the cool thing about this recipe is it does include oatmeal, which we know all the studies continue to say, as they have for years, that oatmeal is very good for us. My husband keeps reminding our adult children and me that oatmeal is so good because Poppy eats oatmeal every single day and he loves it. Our granddaughter, Julia Grace, when she was a baby, was crying for something. She was just starting to talk. We couldn't understand her very well. And she was saying, oh more, and in the high chair and wanting oh more. And we thought, is it Cheerios? We guessed everything and finally realized the child was saying oatmeal. And it made Poppy so happy. And through the tears, she began to smile. Finally, these crazy people understand what I'm asking for. So she got her oh more, and Poppy was so happy that his granddaughter shares his love and affection for oatmeal. Speaking of Julia Grace, I meant to call attention to the apron I'm wearing today. That little baby girl, our first granddaughter, is now 8 years old, unbelievably. And they did a little art project at school, and she chose to feature a heart and a cross on her artwork. And then they had a little fundraiser for their school, and they could buy different products and make those available for parents to buy for Christmas gifts. And so my son Kyle, knowing his mother so well, used Julia Grace's art project and to support her school, bought me an apron. So this apron is from Julia Grace and Kyle for Christmas, and I just love it. So I wanted to wear it in today's video. Okay, 1/2 cup of regular sugar and 1/2 cup of brown sugar. So let me get the things out of the way as I use them. And so we're going to get this all kind of mixed together. Here we go. Okay, that's mixed up nice. We're gonna go ahead and add a teaspoon of vanilla extract. You've heard me say it before, ladies. I just do not like the artificial flavored stuff. So I always use the real thing. Buy it in bulk at Sam's or wherever. Calls for a teaspoon. Sometimes I just decide, oh, another little half a teaspoon will never hurt. Put that in. Going to put in 2 eggs. Again, the things that are like gold these days, you know? Somebody told me about a meme recently where they talked about, oh, back in our day, eggs were so inexpensive, we threw them at our enemies. And boy, you're not going to throw them at your enemy these days. Not at all. And I got just a little piece of shell in there that I'm going to chase with my finger if I can. Oh, my stars. Having a hard time getting it out. Okay, there we go. There we go. One piece of shell, and I actually think I see another one in there too. So I should have grabbed a spoon to do this. Keep thinking I'll be able to get it without it. All right, then I grab a spoon. Why do I think I can use my finger to do what's easily done with a spoon? Because there it is. Got the shell out of the way. This is the reason that you need to break your eggs into another bowl and not directly into your batter. Okay, so there is one egg. I'm going to turn that. I just always flip it so that what's dripping will go right back into the container. And my second egg, maybe this time, voila, no shells this time. So there we go. There we go. We get a dish towel here. Hold on. I wasn't really very prepared. And there's the oven is preheated. I put my second egg in here. This brings to the end all of our liquid ingredients. We'll get these mixed up. Now you can go ahead and do it, of course, said it before, just with a hand, my hand with a heavy wooden spoon, but I just love the ease of doing it with the KitchenAid. Just gets it mixed thoroughly and much more quickly. So I'm gonna raise this up. I'm gonna grab my spatula and just rake down the sides a little bit to make sure everything is mixed in well. Just a little bit of sugar and peanut butter. The batter isn't deep enough to get all the way up there, but here we go. I'm going to give that one more mix, and we're going to move on to our dry ingredients. Okay, that is mixed well. Okay, my eggshells out of the way. Pull this over. Here we go. All right, now the next is 1.5 cups of flour. And I'm going to use my 1 cup container. Let me get my little handy dandy tool that I love to use to rake off the top. Go. 1 cup of flour. I think I got a little bit from a spatula on my 1/2 cup container, but it works. Okay, so there's one, and now we need another 1/2 cup. Let me just make sure. 1.5 cups of flour. So that's mixed in there. You really are supposed to mix it all in a separate bowl, the dry ingredients, but honestly, this is really how I do it in real life. So I'm just dumping it all in together, even though the instructions do say to mix it in a separate bowl. So I am putting together the flour, the soda, and it calls for 1 3/4 of a teaspoon of soda. I have this adjustable measuring spoon from Pampered Chef that I just love. Use the edge of the container to rake that off. And so just, if I'm going to do it this way, I try to sprinkle it around so that it's kind of mixed in there. No one wants to have a big bunch of soda in one bite. That would not taste good, but it always seems to work out for me. So here we go. And the KitchenAid mixes it in pretty well for me as well. And then 1/4 of a teaspoon of salt. Again, sprinkling that around. We're going to go ahead and get our oats. Poppy will be happy that we're putting our healthy oats in here. Calls for 1 cup of these. So rake that off a little bit. Put the oats in there, and we are good to go. Before I add the M&Ms, and I made you those just by hand instead of the mixer. But I'm going to go ahead and give this all a little mix. Let this be mixing together while I grab my pan. We're going to bake these in a 9.5 by 11 container. Now, I'm sort of calling this recipe Sweets for Your Sweeties. It's Valentine's Day, and you can make these for your family, your husband, your children, your grandchildren. Take them to your sister, whatever. And you might say, well, I'm not married. My grandkids live far away, so this isn't really a recipe for me. But I just want to encourage you that this is a great opportunity to even maybe make some sweet treats and take across the street to the neighbor, or take to church to your church staff and leave it for them. Maybe for their staff meeting that week, they would enjoy some sweet treats. So just maybe stop and pray and ask the Lord, who might I bless with some sweet treats during the month of February? And then if you cut them, put them on a little plate, cover them. You can grab and sneak a couple to keep for yourself as well. I've also found these freeze very well. So don't feel like you need to exclude yourself because you're single or you're retired and you think, I don't work in an office, there's no one to take them to, and it's just going to be so much that tempts me and I don't need to have a ram. Okay, we are mixed up here. I'm going to go ahead, rake this down, but I think it's mixed in really well. So this is good to go. I'm going to go ahead and unplug my mixer because I don't like to mess with taking the container off, the mixer batter arm off if it's still plugged in. So I'm going to take this off. I'm going to make sure that I get all of this delicious dough off of the beater because I don't want to wash it down the sink. I want all this to be delicious goodness to be in my pan, getting baked and ready to take to give to whoever is going to be blessed by these. So all we have left to do now, it's gone together pretty quickly, don't you think, is to drop in those M&Ms. Now, when you bake with M&Ms, you usually need to use about 25% less than what the recipe would call for if you were using chocolate chips. If it calls for a cup of chocolate chips, use about 3/4 of a cup of M&Ms. That's tip number one. Tip number two, the concern that is often raised or we become aware of when we bake with chocolate chips is they tend to melt and bleed and the color is in the cookie. And, you know, I don't really care much about that, but it does bother some people. So I'm trying a little experiment today when I bake these to try to avoid that happening. I've had these in the freezer. And usually I also do that with my chocolate chips because I feel like it helps them stay more intact. So by freezing the chocolate chips, I'm hoping that means that they will not maybe melt so quickly. I'm also chopping up about half of them. I started chopping a few of these before we started on the camera, and I'm going to chop. I've chopped about 1/4 a cup. I've got my handy dandy Pampered Chef chopper. Whew, that's a mouthful. And I'm going to just show you how, take about 1/4 a cup of these. And I don't want to pulverize them. I don't want M&M dust. So I'm just giving it about 5 or 6 chops. They're not all going to get chopped. And because they're frozen, they're not going to chop as well. But I'm just going to try to hope that that will help us see some little pieces of chocolate inside. And maybe they'll just permeate through the dough a little bit more. So here we go. I've got about half of my chocolate chips chopped and the other half intact. They're all red from my Christmas package. We're going to mix all these in here, and I am going to give this just a little mix with my wooden spoon. Get these all mixed through, and I'm going to stick them in the oven. They will bake at 350. My oven is convection, so when I set it for 350, it automatically adjusts to 325. They're going to bake for 16 to 18 minutes, but you watch your oven and see what it looks like. 16 to 18 minutes, and you're going to just look for the edges to be a little golden brown. Sometimes you don't want to overbake and have them be so dried out, but when the edges are golden, then they should be done all the way through. I'm going to bring my dough over to the counter so you can see this after I get them in the oven. After I get them in the pan, because it just looks so pretty to see that red. You might be able to see it on the screen, but let me get it into this clear pan. It's a shame that my batter bowl isn't clear so you could see it a little bit better. But I think these are going to look so pretty and festive for Valentine's Day. I have some of my kids coming over today for dinner, so it's close enough here to Valentine's Day that this is going to be a little sweet treat to share with them, and I'm probably going to make a little plate of them and take them someplace else and share them with some others, but I don't want to have all of them hanging around, but I will certainly indulge in a little bit of it. If you really want to up the game with the brownies, you can cut them in squares. Put one of those squares in a bowl, add a dollop of vanilla ice cream or whatever ice cream you think, maybe chocolate chip or what have you. And then even put a little bit of chocolate sauce on top. This is a recipe if you really like nuts, you could also drop some of those in. Typically, my grandchildren, sometimes kids, don't like nuts. We almost have to get to be an adult before we begin to love those so much. So I usually leave the nuts out if I'm serving something to grandkids, but if you wanted to drop in some walnuts or pecans, that would also be an option with this recipe. Or if you're adopting my idea of making the little brownie sundae, you could even sprinkle a few nuts on top. My dough is kind of stiff, but that's okay. It's just taking me a little bit longer here to spread it out. That's the nature of these. I really love this recipe. It makes for a really moist, delicious sort of brownie. And again, I like baking bars because it's not all that in and out of the oven 27 times, as you have to make the cookies and roll them out and drop them one by one. You just make them and then you put it in the oven and wait for the timer to go off. And it's once and done without all that standing and messing with them. So that makes it a whole lot easier. But a regular old cookie is also good as well. And again, it's a moist brownie. I don't like a brownie that's dried out. And this one is very moist, and it includes all of my favorite ingredients: peanut butter, chocolate, oatmeal. So I've got it all out and spread out. Let me let you see how pretty it looks. So you see all the M&Ms in there, the red M&Ms, but you also see a little bit of chocolate peeking through because I chopped up some of the M&Ms. So here you go. These are our peanut butter, chocolate, oatmeal, M&M cookies. So hope you enjoy these. Hope you try them with your family, and just keep thinking about all the different holidays that feature different colors of M&Ms. We can make these for Easter, St. Patrick's Day, Valentine's Day. We can have M&M bars all throughout the year. Thanks for spending part of your day with us. For Cross My Heart Ministry, I'm Lauren McFarland.